Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources and the co-founder and editor-at-large of Corporate Board Member Magazine. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We've got a good show today here from the New York Stock Exchange, and we're going to be talking about a roadmap to onboard your board members and committee chairs. And we're actually going to do sort of a two-part series here. We're going to get a view, a little bit of the guide that's been produced. Then we're going to talk to an actual director and comp chair who's actually on the firing line. So let me introduce my guests that are going to be helping me through this two-part series. First of all, to my right is Tim Bartl, who's the CEO with the Center on Executive Compensation. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, TK. Thanks for having us.
And to his right is Lori Siegel, who's a director with CenturyLink, FactSet, and California Resources Corporation. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Great to be here, TK.
So, Tim, we're used to hearing, when we think about onboarding, we're used to hearing that role by the corporate secretary, okay? But we know that that's not just the only person that influences or participates. The center has also had feedback about the chief human resource officer and their participation, and that sort of, I understand, sort of led to you guys giving this consideration. So talk a little bit about how the guide was created and the guide's name and all the above.
Well, yeah, as you said, TK, as chief human resource officers have become more as part of the onboarding team, especially with comp committee chairs, our subscribers started asking us for resources that could help them, maybe templates on comp committee chair onboarding. And we really found that there weren't a lot out there. And so we recommended, and our advisory board agreed, that we should go out and create a resource. And so we looked to link what comp committee chairs were interested in, along with what CHROs and their teams were providing in terms of information. So we interviewed a total of 8 comp committee chairs who led 12 comp committees, 6 chief human resource officers, and 3 heads of total rewards who worked with them. And that led to the creation of a guide focused on comp committee chair onboarding. And then we have a second segment where we discuss director onboarding generally, because there are so many new directors that are now coming onto committees.
Well, there's certainly a lot out there. If you talk to first-time directors, they are not typically satisfied with the onboarding process. So there's certainly room for improvement. But let me get to the meat of this, which we like to do on this show. But so, sort of thematically, what are the takeaways in the guide? Like, if somebody asks for a copy, what are the major takeaways?
So when we looked at who the comp committee chairs were looking for in terms of new comp committee chairs, the type of onboarding process, and then the contents of that process. So not surprisingly, it was universally preferred that somebody have CEO experience if possible, because they have led large organizations, they understand the link between strategy and rewards, and they also have had to do a lot of external engagement as well as leadership within a board structure. But the type of onboarding process really ranged from the informal, and quite a few companies had that, to the formal. But when we asked the comp committee chairs what they preferred, they said that they preferred the formal process that really led step by step. And so when you look at what is contained there, what's in there, what they want is a clear set of pre-reads, and really you need a good facilitation, a good communication ahead of time to the incoming chair about the level and the amount of detail. They want an onboarding session, at least one. And one of our members mentioned that compensation is really a process, not an event. And so in compensation, you really probably want more than one opportunity, but at least a half day or a full day session that involves the C-suite, the CEO, the general counsel, the CFO, the chief human resource officer, and then the business unit heads, to get that nexus again to strategy and how compensation has worked in practice. Then often you get into the details of the compensation program. First of all, the map, if you will, of what the compensation committee does is the charter, and closely aligned with that is the calendar. And then how does that comp committee chair want to work with the team in terms of the meetings they set up and the preparation so that the committee runs smoothly, because that first 90 days as a chair is so important. Getting into the details of the design of the programs, the external environment in terms of the proxy advisory firms. They want an opportunity to engage with the board's external consultant and learn maybe some of the things that have worked effectively, those who haven't worked as effectively, and then they look for an opportunity to look to maybe set processes going forward as to what they may want to change that they've experienced, because most of these chairs are going to have been on the committee previously.
So one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and this sort of gets to the expertise of the center, was what's in there on the specifically on the compensation committee chair.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting because you actually had a list that said, here are the things that a comp chair better be on top of before they even get that first committee meeting. So share a little bit about, from your experience, sort of the characteristics, the knowledge, the skills of what you see in the best comp chairs from the center's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to have an interest, even a passion for the link between business strategy and rewards, because compensation matters. Compensation can help drive the strategy the company wants to achieve, and being able to understand and appreciate that nexus is so important. And going very closely along with that is the business acumen to understand how the metrics and the targets align and what that means consistent with what the company is trying to achieve. They also need to have a full appreciation for the link between talent strategy and how the comp strategy aligns. In fact, if you look at a lot of the discussion around culture and compensation, one of the things that we found is, a lot of comp committees now have talent as one of their primary objectives, and that's increasing. Obviously, having somebody on the committee makes a lot of sense, because having that experience and knowing how things operated previously is important. And then, somebody who has both the presence of mind and understanding to influence both management and committee members after doing due diligence with the outside consultant and pulling in current practices. You really want somebody who's going to be a thinking partner with the Chief Human Resource Officer and their teams, and who can create constructive disagreement to effectuate the best arrangement for the company.
Well, I think you just described Lori, okay? Lori, you chair two of your board's comp committees. Correct. And you're a member of the third.
Correct.
So you have a lot of experience, and I'm really looking forward into part 2, where we get your perspective on the guide and really sort of on the onboarding as a whole, because obviously you've had a lot of experience with that. So back to you, Tim. Where can somebody get a copy of this guide? Because I found it very thorough, and it's a good read, not just for Chief Human Resource Officers, but really for board members. So where can they get a copy?
So if you go to our website at www.execcomp.org, that has 2 C's in the middle, and look under Resources, Center Publications, it should be one of the first 2 documents there.
Okay, well, we'll make sure. And again, Lori, I'm looking forward. We'll do part 2. And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.